Hi, everyone. Welcome to the third and final day of the Open Book Festival. I'm really very, very happy to be here. The Open Book Festival is so special in the literary community, and I'm so glad that you could join us on this little magic that usually tends to happen on the stage. I'm joined today, it was originally going to be three, but unfortunately, for unforeseen reasons, Buntu Siwisa could not make it today. So I'm joined by Michèle Betty, who is the author of Dark Horse. If you could just hold it up for everyone, please.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Play with my mic a bit because I moved chairs.
And I'm also joined by Damilare Kuku, who brings to us her debut novel called Only Big Bum Bum Matters Tomorrow.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you for making the time, and thank you for making the time.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
So this panel is centered around family and forgiveness and the paths taken towards healing. And by way of a personal introduction, I'd like to kick off by asking what your family is like and what kind of families you grew up in, and just maybe painting us a portrait of your family, please. Who would like to go first?
So I grew up in a pretty... my parents traveled a lot, so I spent a lot of time in and out of schools. And from what I hear from my elder brother, I spent a lot of time in trees as well. Yes, that's just so we're clear. My brother said he used to look for me in trees, and I also used to take his food. So I think I was very chubby as a child, and so to appease me, you would have to give me food, and we would be friends. So yeah, and of course, traveling and moving around meant that I couldn't have too many friends. So the ones I kept till I grew, till I became an adult, stayed with me. And yeah, so the family is I'm from a Yoruba family. We're very grounded. Nobody cares who anybody is. You're going to do what you're supposed to do. So your parents would welcome you if you go to school. Maybe you're gone for a semester, they would welcome you. After the first, second, third day, your mother will be like, oh my God, Dami, I've missed you so much. Thank you, my baby, come back, and you're so happy. By the third day, you have become everybody's servant. So in a Nigerian family, as a girl and as a first girl, you are everybody's mother, even your mom's mom, when she needs you to be. And somehow, somewhere, they still expect you to show up and keep it together. So that's basically it.
Okay, Damilare, mother, tree climber. I'm sorry we don't have snacks for you today. Michèle?
Hi, everyone. So I think if I have to explain to you a little bit about my family and my history, I come from a Lebanese family. We grew up where family and food were central to our upbringing. Every meal is sort of entrenched in my memory. A lot of my poems reflect the foods that we ate as children. I have a brother and sister, and grew up in quite a conservative, traditionally religious family. And that's influenced a lot of my poetry and my spirituality that comes through in the poems, grounded first in that traditional form of Catholicism, which I grew up with. But I have quite a different view on that now, on spirituality, but that was grounded in childhood. And I think, like your childhood is a fundamental part of your adult life. I think if you don't tap into your childhood memories, what does Jung say? They manifest in your adult life as manias. So, yeah, all of us need to tap into our childhood.
Okay, thanks, Michèle. Speaking of tapping into the childhood, I want to transition now and give the audience a little bit of a taste of your books. And originally, I'd wanted you to read the ins and outs of an inquest docket, because you've been talking about food and memory. I think I want to start off with L'Infraordinaire and then go on to the ins and outs of an inquest docket. And Damilare, I'm also going to ask you to read, but when Michèle is done.
Well, thanks for asking me to read that poem. It's quite a long poem, and so often it does get left by the wayside. So it'll be wonderful to read it here. Hope everyone can just sit back and relax. So say the proper pronunciation for me.
L'infraordinaire.
Yeah, I can't say it like that. L'infraordinaire. You've remembered my life for me, Jean Varl. I remember on the West Rand. I want to say something about this poem first before I read it. It's based on the form of poem that Dennis Herson used in his poem I Remember King Kong. So I'm not sure if any of you read that in the 70s, but it became quite a cult book. And it's a use of nostalgia in the writing of the poems, which I know is not a very fashionable thing at the moment, but using nostalgia in a way to tap into the reader's sort of social, emotional, and political backgrounds and ideas. So just having said that, I'll carry on reading. I remember on the West Rand, pink proteas growing wild and in bloom on the kopje outside our house. I remember the filtered sunlight. In the sunroom, the morning mother carefully ironed the white crepe of my first Holy Communion dress. I remember my fingers dripping water as I rolled raw rice and lamb mince into veined grape leaves the shape of my hands. I remember sitting at the kitchen table watching mother scoop out pips and pulp from the inside of marrows to make kusa. I remember when Joanna told me she could not sit on the park bench because she was black, not brown. I remember every Saturday my father marking the newspaper with a pencil to prepare his bets for the races that afternoon. I remember the noise when the police raided the staff quarters in our road to check that Joanna and people like Joanna had their passbooks. I remember the mix of salt and flour on my fingers as I turned soft dough around little balls of meat to make caps for shishbarak. I remember dropping trays of caps one by one into a swirling pot of simmering, mint-scented yogurt mixed with garlic and butter, and my mother's exclamation, "Saktain," when I dished up my second helping. I remember sitting on the kitchen counter and mother with her arm around my waist, making warm, sweet 5 roses with the tea bags from the evening before. I remember when Joanna knelt on the carpet, looked into my eyes, and told me she had to leave to go home. I remember my parents and our neighbors, the Murrays, talking and talking about the bright light of the unidentified flying object that hovered in the sky at dusk for over an hour above our house. I remember listening quietly to my father and uncles whispering of how some years ago in the 1960s, the Lebanese couldn't own property in Johannesburg because they were not classified as white. I remember the lines of white iceberg roses planted alongside a dusty sand road in a place called Santon for the opening of the fancy new Maronite Catholic Church, which had been relocated from Fordsburg. I remember the refracted light spilling from the stained glass windows in the Rosebank Catholic Church, the cool air from the vaulted ceilings, and me peering over the top of the pews trying to memorize the I believe. I remember sitting cross-legged in front of the Telefunken, watching Neil Armstrong step onto the moon, and my father saying how the Russians must be going crazy. I remember telling my parents that the most popular girl in grade 1 was given 2 rand for the tuck shop, not 20 cents. I remember the brown, square, cardboard suitcase with gold-colored latches that my Sutu and Judu proudly brought me before I started grade 1. I remember my brother and sister and I traveling around Johannesburg, sitting in the boot of my mother's bright yellow Volkswagen Beetle. I remember hearing that my mother was 15 when she met my father and 19 when they married. I remember the ash floating in the night air as the flames of the fire that scoured the kopje reaching right up to our patch of back lawn. I remember using a hosepipe to soak and arc the shape of a sickle moon around the perimeter of the lawn to protect us from the flames. I remember my father sitting around a smoky dining room table with his Sunday night card school playing klabias. I remember Mother and I serving platters of cheese and tomato sandwiches and whiskey and clearing away ashtrays piled with cigarette butts. I remember large family lunches with uncles, aunts, cousins, and the parish priest, children running amok all over the house and endless bowls of meza. I remember when my mother told me that Sue Nyamnjoh couldn't visit anymore because there was a car accident. I remember that my mother, unable to sleep, was reading Thanatopsis in the middle of the night when she received the call about that accident. I remember learning that the first time my mother had to loan money from her father to pay my own father's gambling debts was 3 months after they married.
Thank you. I honestly did feel transported when you were reading, and the nostalgia works quite well in like letting us into that space that you're in when you're writing from. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue.
Okay. Damilare, on a lighter note, or a more humorous note, I found it quite humorous. Could you please read from page 241? It starts with "You woke again," and then end on page 243. And before you read, could you maybe contextualize where you're reading from, just so that the audience can follow with you?
Okay, so I'm reading from Tammy, and what is happening at this particular time is her aunt has gone to call the pastor to deliver her from the spirit of BBL. And she's waking up to oil dripping all over her face, because in Nigeria, we have something called anointing oil. I don't know if everyone has it here, where they use that to rebuke the demon in you. So that's what's happening in this scene. You woke again much later in the morning to liquid dripping on your face. When you were able to see, the blurry image turned out to be Auntie Jumai's spiritual leader. "Get out, you demon of bomb-bomb! You demon of cosmetic surgery!" Prophet Tunde screamed, sprinkling olive oil over you. "This child does not belong to you, you dirty, fake spirit. Get out and catch fire." If you weren't wiping your face and trying to look for your phone, you would have laughed. Where was it? You scrambled around in your bed and slid your hand between the wall and your bed frame. Where was your phone? Suddenly, he grabbed you, dragged you out of bed, and forced you to your knees. You caught a whiff of his perfume mixed with the smell of whatever he had been eating as he ordered out the demons and devils. Amen! Auntie Jumai was standing in the doorway with a Bible pointed directly at you. Your mother was behind her, as if unsure of what was happening. She had her phone in one hand and had yours and was holding her handbag in the other. Eventually, the prophet stopped spitting on you. "Mommy, please, can I have my phone?" "Sister Timmy, please focus." Prophet Tunde cut in. "We have seized your phone and your bag. You're not going anywhere," Auntie Jumai said as she closed the door. "Am I going to be held against my will?" you screamed. "No, you are here so that we can all understand." Mommy's muffled response came through the door. "How do you want to understand when you're all reacting like this?" you asked her. "Sister Asana, don't worry. I will chase out these demons." He hefted a large Bible and shook it in your face. "Let us look into the Bible. No woman worried about her buttocks in the Bible. Did Deborah win the war with her buttocks? Did Jacob notice Rachel's yansh? Did Esther win the heart of the kings with hers? No," Auntie Jumai responded with gusto.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so now that we've all read a little bit, I'd like to carry on the conversation by asking you to each reflect a little bit on how these books came about, with a particular focus on what you drew from when crafting the portraits of the families that feature in your work.
Should I start?
Anyone you want to do?
From my perspective, I think that the poems arose from my exploration into my childhood and into experiences that I had in my childhood. And I've always been very interested in psychic awareness. And so that takes the form of various things like clairvoyance and dream therapy and divinations and a mentor when I did my master's once told me you must always write your dreams. And so many of the poems that you'll find in this collection are dreams that I've had, experiences that I've had. I read a lot of John Berryman, and many of the poems are influenced by thought processes that he had. He believed deeply that God is a God of rescue and intervenes in your life in definitive and palpable ways. And there was a very interesting interview in the Paris Review in 1970 with Berryman, and he explains the intervention that he had that led him to this faith journey and this belief in God as a God of rescue. And I've had two such experiences myself, one of which I wrote about in my first collection, Metaphysical Balm, and the second of which I wrote about in this book, which was when my brother survived 40 days on a ventilator during COVID. And so there's a selection of poems that relate to that and to that experience that I had. And I've been particularly interested in understanding processes of healing. So the first section of the book deals with personal experiences and my own physical experiences of what I went through as a child. But the second and third parts of the book look at different aspects of healing. Healing through spirituality, healing through intertextualizing with other poets and writers who've experienced similar things. And that's how most of the poems came about.
Thank you. I think the elements of spirituality and religion really come across quite clearly, even if it's just the Catholicism or something more spiritual, or even the fantastical with the dreams and the premonitions and all of that. So, yeah, thank you. Damilare?
So when I was writing about family in this book, in Nigeria, we have two things that are very prominent. We believe in family, no matter how broken it may be, and we also believe in religion. We definitely think that instead of therapy, everybody can just go to God. That's literally our thing. If you have a problem, they tell you, you know how they say when we were younger, our mother, when you have a cold, put rub on it, put Vicks on it. When you have something, put Vicks on it. Literally, God is our solution for everything. Even when he has literally given us people that would help us in case of therapy. So with family, all you need to do is just look around. All African mothers, all Nigerian mothers, they are cut from the same cloth. They are literally the same way. They don't, they want you to be a certain way. They don't want you to have a boyfriend till you are 18 or 19, but they also want you to marry before 21. So within those 2 years, they expect that you have learned everything they kept telling you were going to not have when you were younger. And the African fathers, the ones that are around, will sit in the parlor and read the newspaper and not really talk and only grunt. And then they will always have the larger pieces of meat and whatever. So it was very easy to draw that. But with this book, what I did was I now took the general idea of family in Nigeria, and then I inserted what I thought should be. So aside from what is, because it's fiction and it's my book and I can do what I like, I took what I thought fit. So I took the father figure. Instead of him reading newspapers and being absent, I gave a father that I think every girl and every guy deserves. With the husband, I gave her a husband that every woman deserves. Then with the aunties, of course I kept the aunties judgmental because how else are we going to have fun? So I took from both, and then I put the things, so in that part, I gave myself what I wanted. I wrote the father the way I wanted, I wrote the mother the way I wanted, and I wrote the kids the way they all are in Nigeria. So yeah.
Thank you. When you started speaking about Tito, I was like, because when I was reading it, I remember reading it, I was like, this is not the typical Nigerian father. This man is warm, he is attentive, he is loving, he is present. So I was very, and it made me feel warm inside reading Tito's character. So thank you for that. Thank you for creating spaces in fiction where we have good fathers, even if they're fictional. Okay, so when I was reading the books, something that stuck with me was the setting that came really alive. In Michèle, in the last section, there seems to be some kind of pilgrimage going on through the cities that you visit. And in Only Big Bam Bam, Lagos is a site of great hurt for both Hassana and Ladun. I'd like you guys to talk about the cities in your book as both a site of repair and a site of fracture. And Michèle, I want to start with you, and maybe you can read from Butanding and Threshold on page 64 and 66.
Okay. So several years ago, I visited Peru. What an incredible country. And this particular poem I wrote when following my experiences in Lima, which is one of the most beautiful cities. And in Lima, they have these most amazing doors and doorways. And I often view cities as liminal spaces. Spaces where there are thresholds, and this sort of iconography of the door and doorways is what I was exploring in this poem, Threshold. Peru is a country transfixed by doors, artfully constructed entryways crafted from rectangular slabs of wood, even in temperature, temperament and stature. Doors of pale yellow ochre, sage or burgundy, carved in intricate block patterns, simple slats running perpendicular to the floor, or whole towns with cerulean blue doors, an ancient practice inherited from the conquistadors, always affixed with a wrought iron bolt, almost always never open. The Incas never used doors, only doorways, mammoth hexagonal structures of interlocking masonry with no mortar, a duality of aperture allowing light in and a daring view out, trapezoid portals blending geometry and the natural landscape, embracing the solstices, the moon, the sun, and stars. In holy places, wooden poles were wedged in doorways denoting no entry, and removed only when nobles or the sacred stepped over the threshold. And I think for me, like, very often one can experience deep spirituality in nature. I don't know if any of you watched Ben Vogel, but he does this travel show on TV, and his most recent one was of the Scottish Hebrides. And he's walking along this beach with a woman in this very remote place, and she says that she literally experiences a communion with a greater spirit when she's walking along this remote beach. And it tapped into many of my ideas about experiencing and going back to nature. And there are quite a few poems in the collection that deal with this. There's a long poem in the back called Recovery, which is based on a reading of Walt Whitman's Specimen Days. But this poem is called Butandan, which means whale shark in Philippine. And I was in Mozambique at the time that I wrote this poem. In Torfino Bay, I swim with a whale shark, gigantic creature previously birthed in my consciousness thanks to National Geographic, now an arm's length from my outreached palm. Its wide, flat head and two small eyes watch me curiously. Brown and cream-speckled, its luminous weight weighs on me. I lick salt and kelp rind from my lips. My goggles fog. A cool humming radiates from my ear canals into clumsy limbs. Buddhists say when we die, deep attachments and memories are obstructions, and I'm like a seahorse tethered to seagrass on the ocean floor, hastily fluttering my fins, backing away to halt the striking vision of a life after this one.
Thank you, Michèle. Can you maybe talk about the cities? And I saw it as a pilgrimage of sorts. Is that how you saw it?
Yes, I mean, I think that traveling offers one that opportunity to experience different cultures and different spaces. And faith is like a pilgrimage. It is like a journey. And I particularly like exploring different faiths. This particular one speaks about Buddhism, but interested in many different faith journeys. And that is a journey that you tap into when you write. Pilgrimage also comes through in my previous collection, Metaphysical Balm. That book ends with a long journey and walk through the streets of London. So it is a theme that comes through in a lot of the poems.
All right, thank you. Damilare, I want to talk about Lagos and Ile-Ife and the relationship that the characters have to these cities and their experiences that they have there, both Hassana and Ladun. I'm thinking specifically about the scene where Ladun is welcomed into Lagos with a slap and the things that she's running away from and how the city doesn't quite cradle her. Can you speak to that a little bit, please?
So with Lagos, Lagos is a special kind of city. I'm not even joking. If you ever come to Nigeria, you require a specific set of skills to survive in Lagos. You have to pretend like you are one of us. Always. And you must try your best to not let anyone cheat you. So that's almost like when someone says something to you, if you ask, how much is this? If they say it's 500, immediately lower it by 400 and say, can it be 100 naira? Because they've seen you and they can tell that you have money. Lagos is such a special city and it never sleeps. So it was, and you see that with Hassana has such a traumatic relationship with Lagos because it's in Lagos that she had something done to her body that she didn't approve of. So she was running away from Lagos. Jumai also had a traumatic relationship with Lagos because it's in Lagos. Well, I won't say hers is traumatic because her husband beat her and then she beat her husband. So, Lagos was fair with her. So she got away with Lagos. But she left Lagos because she didn't have a home again. She was thrown out after the whole thing. So these two women cannot understand why any of these kids will want to go to the place that they have been, that has thrown them out. It's almost like Lagos gorged them, vomited them out. So they just don't want anybody. And in Nigeria, when people want to leave their home and they want to go make it big, they'll say, I'm going to Lagos. I'm going to Lagos. By the time I come back, I'll have money and I'll have all my dreams. And most times, when you go to Lagos, Lagos is the star. You are just a passerby. Lagos will chew you. Lagos will squeeze you. Just somehow, somewhere, there's a popular saying. They say, "Owo Eko, Eko Longbe." The money you make in Lagos, you will spend it in Lagos. Lagos will not let you go back home with money. So that those dreams that people have, it's always far-fetched. So it was very interesting, and it was important to write that. With Ile-Ife, Ile-Ife is that chilled city. You see how chilled you are? That's how Ile-Ife is. It's very cool. So,
all right, thank you. I don't know if I want to go to Lagos or stay away from it now. Okay, so now throughout both of the books, there are moments of fracture. Some of them are dramatic and big, and while others are a little bit more subtle. And I'd like to turn towards the repair and the healing that follows. When I was looking at the etymology of the word healing, it had something to do with making something whole again. And I found that, I don't know how I feel about it quite yet. But yeah, Damilare, there are various moments of fracture. We see that with Jumai and Hassana and Ladun, and obviously with Temi's big announcement of bum proportions. How do the characters in this book and the families embark on this road to repair, to making whole again?
They don't. But they did not, because that's why they told her she could go ahead to fix the bomb. Because rather than tell her, rather than have those conversations that will start the healing journey. And she gave them an opening. She said,
she did.
If everyone can answer my questions, I won't fix my butts. She asked all of them questions, nobody gave her an answer. And they all left. They just said, you know what, just go ahead. So, and the reason why that was important to show is because that's what happens in African societies. That's what happens in Nigerian homes. We don't have very difficult conversations. rather than your mother say, I'm sorry that I hurt you, she would just come to your room and say, okay, that shoe you asked for last week, I'll buy it for you. Say sorry for what you did. That was clear. That was a mistake. We don't have conversations. And I'm not saying that as a parent you shouldn't be a leader to your child, but your child needs to also see that you're human. You understand? So when you make a mistake, you say to your child, I made a mistake, I'm sorry. That was not my intention, I'm sorry. But no, that's not the way of the Nigerian parents. So there's no healing that has happened per se. The only healing that happened in the book was between her and Ladu.
Yes.
And don't forget that they only healed that way because the mother needed her to do something else. So Nigerian parents they will give you something you need to get what they need that is bigger than what you are asking for. So that's the thing. But it's not like they even do it they're not trying to be wicked. That's how they know to love. Which is why I also want to be like, for goodness sake, children, cut your parents some slack. Because the way they know to parent is how they will parent you. So there's no healing per se except for that. Would I like for there to be healing? Of course I would. But I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that there's some journey that happens. We literally just sweep stuff under the rug.
Do you think there's opportunities to break that cycle?
Yes, that's why this book is existing. Yes. I'm begging people to please have conversations because I can no longer deal with the whole not admitting when you're wrong. I'm so tired of everybody telling me how successful they were when they were growing up. I just want you to tell me the truth. Everybody could not have been so successful. Everybody could not have had it so good. Come on, you're telling me nobody kissed a guy when they were 13? No, it's not. So, yeah, that's why this book exists.
Okay, thank you. Michèle?
Yes.
I think for you, well, at least in my reading of Dark Horse, the moment of fracture happens with the suicide that's recounted in the poems. And this fracture comes across quite clearly because you start off in the first poem, in the first section, painting this family portrait centered around food and memory and travel. And then we see the unraveling happening with the grief and an attempt to pull oneself from the precipice. Could you please speak to the form of healing that takes in your collection, particularly as it relates to the religious and the spiritual? And I would also like you, do we have time? I think so, to read, before you answer, read I Sleep and My Soul Awakens on page 38.
Oh, okay. Look at that. Yeah, so this poem taps in again to that idea of writing your dreams, and it was a dream that I actually had. I sleep and my soul awakens. My father's sister was Dominican. Stern and learned, she taught perfect English in a convent. She lived to her 80s, wrinkled and pale, shrinking in on herself, to die with the other sisters, standing vigil in a mandala alongside. Yesterday she came to me in a dream, a halo of light, a background of navy blue, almost black. Her skin was smooth, youthful, all peaches and cream, her lips tinged with rose. She was holding a broken doll. Will you take care of this for me, she asked. Take care of this. And in my sleep I took the doll from her, clutched it to my breast and wept.
Thank you.
So just to speak a little bit about paths to healing, one of the really interesting books that I read was Specimen Days. I didn't know that Walt Whitman, when he was 54, had a stroke that rendered him bedridden for 2 years. And he was actually a prolific diarist, and he writes these diaries of his path to healing. And they're phenomenal diary entries of how he communed with nature. And he had I don't know if it was a family friend or someone had a home in the country, and he lived in the countryside, and he would like hobble to outside into nature and lie under the stars. He would swim in these icy rivers. He would put his chair under these cherry blossom trees and just let the bees swarm all over him. And he writes about how through this ecological communion with nature, he achieved healing for his physical body. And I think like when you've been through a trauma, his was a physical thing, but when you go through any kind of trauma, that kind of healing, you have to reach out, especially in this day and age, there's so many medical things that they can do, but only to a point. And you have to tap into and reach to other forms of healing. And nature and ecology can offer a deep, a spiritual, like something that you can't tap into or know tangibly, but can have a real effect and impact on your healing.
Thank you. Okay, so we still have a little bit more time. Can I please, because I really wanted you to read it, can I ask you to read one last poem, and then we'll move on to questions from the audience for the last 15 minutes, because we do need to give people a chance to ask some questions. Let me just find it. It's the inquest one, but which, let me see.
Should I read Recovery?
Yes, please, because you were just talking about that. You were just talking about it. So maybe
I'll
read
read you that
Recovery.
one.
Okay.
So we can end on a healing note.
On a healing
not
note. That makes sense. Let's do that.
Recovery. In Specimen Days, Walt Whitman writes of the stroke that rendered him bedridden for years, how in his then half-paralytic body he regained a life force. The first frost, spring overtures, the full starred nights. Page after page he writes of midnight migrations, of immense flocks of birds, swarms of wild bees in their thousands, swelling like a moving cloud, he resting under the wild cherry, enveloped in their drone. Of trees, water, grass, and sunlight, the moon and the stars. He renders detailed lists of the names of trees, bird life, the stars, and even the wildflowers, a deep awareness of the nuance of sunlight in every form, the beauty of evening shadows. In The Lesson of a Tree, he weighs up the existence of dryads and extols the power of trees. Sometimes he wakes at midnight just to watch Venus rise in the blue-black sky and inhale the acoustic air. Frequently, he communes with the invisible physician, a vital presence found in solitary places that imparts a silent medicine to the physical body. Whenever he is able, he hobbles to water, small dams and nearby ponds, to watch his favorite kingfishers, to listen to the sounds of nature, to sing robustly out loud, and if his new body allows him, to swim for long stretches in the icy water.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to Damilare. I really enjoyed being in conversation with the two of you. Now I am going to open it up to the audience. I believe there will be someone with a microphone moving around. There we go. Oh, I see a question here at the front in the third row.
Hi. Excuse me, I've got some flu. Hi, everyone.
Hi there.
I don't know whether it's me and just being confused or not understanding what the message the panel was trying to convey. You know, the topic was like family and
Forgiveness.
forgiveness and paths to acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And I must say, that's what I'm saying, maybe it's me not understanding, because I feel quite disappointed because I didn't get any of that in what the panel was giving us.
I think I understand what you're saying, because you're saying that you wanted answers, right?
Not quite answers, but probably ideas based on the topic at hand. But I didn't hear anything about the topic at hand as per se.
How
That's
to
what I'm
reach
saying.
forgiveness.
That's why I'm saying maybe it's me not understanding, but I didn't hear any ideas about, what's it? Paths to acceptance and, and how that happens in a family. That's what I'm saying. Obviously, there won't be solutions, but ideas. If I don't know, maybe I'm not making sense because I'm quite confused. As to
Sorry.
this.
Well, we did sort of go through the portraits of the families and the fractures that happen, and Damilare did speak about the lack thereof of that healing and encouraged us to have difficult conversations as a path towards that. So that was one of the options as well.
And I think trying to find different ways to access acceptance for yourself is, in my particular case, I did that journey of walking through a spiritual journey, accessing some kind of greater path, and also through ecological, like communing with nature, being out in nature and accessing that kind of healing. And for every person in their situation, I suppose their paths to forgiveness and acceptance are going to be uniquely theirs. And you have to walk that path on your own.
Okay. Thank you. So let's see. There's a hand here. Oh, there's another one there.
Thanks so much for the talk. I've got a question for Damilare about, you made a point about you referenced sneakers as a way of parents apologizing, buying you something. And I went to an interesting talk at 12 about loneliness, and the author there, Shubnam Khan, was saying how one of the characters in her book, a mother, apologizes to her children by making food for them. And she made the point about how, you need to become a sort of sense of literacy in your parents, in understanding that for them making food is like huge. But for you, and I resonate with what you said, you want the apology, we want the apology. So I'm curious as to your thoughts about like what you think it means to become literate in our parents or our siblings or just our family generally. I haven't read the book, I apologize, but you've referenced a number of family members as characters in the book. Just curious to your thoughts about that.
First of all, don't worry that you haven't read the book. That's why I'm here. I'm pitching the book to you to ensure you buy it on time. With family, so, we often think that literacy has to do with education. You have to go to school to have some sort of certificate that lets you, that says, okay, you're literate or whatever, and you have an idea. But with Nigerian families, I'm just going to put it because I'm Nigerian, I think with our generation is more aware, just so we're clear. We call out the trauma as is now. We tell our parents, Mom, what you're saying hurts me, and I'd like for you to apologize. Rather, even if she says, oh, do you want another sneaker? No, I don't. I want you to say sorry for what happened. She might not necessarily say sorry at that point, but if you're speaking with healthy parents, what would happen is maybe later at night, while you're sleeping, because Nigerian parents just can't say sorry at that moment, she would wake you up and say sorry. So generational trauma ends when we start to be aware that the things our parents did, they didn't know that were wrong because they just didn't know it. Some did, let's be clear. If you had narcissistic parents, then they knew exactly what they were doing. But those parents that this is what their fathers did to them. So they know that food is how you say sorry. They know that when your daughter is not supposed to be pregnant. So when she's pregnant at the wrong age, you throw her out. They know that your sons are supposed to be out working. Nobody should be lazy. They just know that that's what's been passed down. So nobody talks about their feelings. Everybody just cocoons it under different things. Then there's also the part where, God forbid that your child is not straight. So it's almost like these things they are not things that they're used to, which is why as children, that's why I'm asking for children to cut your parents some slack. Send them materials to say, this is what I expect from you. This is how I would like for us to communicate. If you're willing to meet me halfway, or you don't have a relationship with me, it's really that simple. It's either you're willing to be better for me as a father, and a mother, or you and I, family doesn't necessarily have to connect with blood. You can find your family somewhere else if your family is not doing what you want. So that's what I think with us being aware. That literacy in the family is accepting that these are, and we all have our flaws. And I just said to Michèle and Sue that I think every year families need to sit twice in a year and have uncomfortable conversations. Just have family meetings. For the ones that are not in the country, join by Zoom. I'm not joking. Sit down and have conversation. What's happening in your life? Your son is going through so much in that country that he's going to, but you're not checking in. So have uncomfortable conversations and don't be judgmental. Your daughter should not be saying, oh, I had sex with someone 2 days ago, and you're like, hey, no, listen, and ask her what is wrong. Why do you keep having sex with nameless strangers? What can we do to make you feel loved? Because you're looking for acceptance somewhere. That's why you're doing all those things. And do not judge. So families need to have uncomfortable meetings twice a year to check in with one another. If you're not doing that, I don't know what else. And join via Zoom. So no excuse.
Actually, Barbara Boswell did a talk this morning. Well, I don't know if anyone went to that, and it was on bringing up feminist boys. And that was a point that she raised where she said, like, families must have uncomfortable conversations. Like, you have to face the uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've enjoyed the panel, and there's been a gentleness, but also a frank look at families. And Damilare, I especially love how you write your ideal father and relationships into the book. I think that is so beautiful, and in that way, fiction is a way of healing, right? My question to you is, there is so much emphasis on forgiveness, and I often feel that is yet another burden that is placed on the survivor or the victim of who was wronged, and now they have to forgive, and the onus is on them to forgive, and there's a much less focus on the perpetrator who should take accountability. And so I don't ascribe to the idea of forgiveness. I am not about forgiveness. I am about accountability. And I would love to ask your opinion about forgiveness, if I may, because, look, I have forgiven, but I feel that it is a burden that we place on people, and it is an unfair burden. I would love your thoughts on that, if I may.
Don't forgive them for them. Forgive them for you. You owe yourself that responsibility. That you are absent, that you did something to me. I'm going to forgive you, not for you. I'm going to not have a relationship with you if you're not accountable. That's what I'm saying about accountability in the terms of I failed as a parent in this place, and I also was not a very good child because I saw that you made efforts as a parent, and I still, chose to be stubborn. But when you carry a burden, I'll tell you this. There was something that happened to me like 3-4 years ago. And the person had hurt me really deeply because I opened up myself to the person and they took advantage of me, and I felt like I had been abused in every way. So I was angry for like 2 years. And when I'm talking about that matter, I'm so upset. But then I realized that this other person is just going about their life, doing whatever that they want, and they're probably cheating the next person. So what I did was I sat in my room. I said, I'm going to forgive this man for what he did to me, for me. And I'm going to move on. But I'm not going to let this happen to me again. So when you show me a trait of that thing I saw those years ago, I'm out of it. So when you forgive people, it's not for them. Oh. People care. No, they don't. They're not. They're living their lives. They don't want to even be accountable that they did something to you. So forgive people for yourself so that you can move on. And the thing they say in our tradition, when you hold on to something like this, you can't receive anything else. But when your hands are like this, other things will come. People that are supposed to love you will love you. People that are supposed to be there for you. So please, I beg you, start to practice forgiveness. Please.
That's a really profound answer. Thank you. I think just to follow on from that a little bit, and to offer just something about writing. Writing is a very physical act. It's an act that comes through your body, that manifests through into your writing experience. And it can be used as a cathartic experience through which you can achieve not forgiveness, but it can assist in helping you to face the issues that you need to look at squarely up front. And that is something that I can encourage you to do as an act. And you don't need to call it as an act of, reaching forgiveness, but as an act, a cathartic act of actually releasing it out of your body. Because that's what you need to do actually for yourself, is to release that pain out of your own physical body. Because otherwise it manifests and sits in your body.
Yeah, I can definitely echo what Michèle is saying about writing. Sometimes I'll be sitting and writing something, and it's only in that process of writing that I uncover what it is that is the truth. And through that, I find like a sense of release that's quite deep, and I feel it in my body.
And when you write poetry, the most important part of it is actually the reworking and the redrafting. And the reworking and the redrafting is where there's a profound emotional connection with the experience, because you have to confront it on a very technical, deep level. And Anne Sexton wrote all of her poems with her psychologist, all that cathartic outpouring, but she says that it was in the reworking and in the redrafting and in the going over and in the refining that she actually achieved intellectual distancing and profound emotional peace.
Can I just say, you guys have brought me to tears. This has been very affirming.
Sorry, I can't see you because the light is so bright. Okay.
It's been very affirming. Everything you've said is very true, writing, but like the physical act of writing with a pen, not typing, doesn't do it sometimes. But my question or my thoughts were around complicated feelings and guilt, especially with fathers, parents, and it usually tends to be, the people closest to you in your life. And they're the ones who end up letting you down the most. But you still love them, and you want to then, educate them. You want to give them the words to have these conversations, but also like, why must I do all the work? This is so much labor. It's so frustrating. So it's complicated. Just your thoughts on this and how you navigate it.
So with family, of course, because again it's complicated. So it's hard you can love your family member and hate them. If that doesn't make any sense. Like I love you because you're my family, but I hate the person you are and I hate everything you represent because of what you've done to me. Again, it's about seeing people for who they are. I don't know how to say this to you. When you know who a person is, just accept them, especially when they're not going to change, and put them in a place where they no longer have power over you. So don't enter a conversation with a narcissistic family member expecting accountability. Just say what you have to say and check out of the conversation. Do you understand what I'm saying? Don't expect sorry from somebody that is not even sure they've done anything wrong. But when you have conversations with yourself and say, it is what it is, whenever you hear me say it is what it is, I have gotten to a place where I've accepted that this is where you are, this is where I am, we don't have to agree, but I'm not going to let you stop me. So complication is normal with family members. They are the people that, I don't know, it's harder to forgive family members than strangers because they grew up with you, they know you, and then they're hurting you. It's like you saw me naked and then you tore my skin with a knife, So with that, you just have to, if you're lucky, if you speak your hurt and they accept it and they say they're sorry, and they will do better by you, that's good. But if they don't, accept it and tell yourself it's fine. I mean, she's subscribed. Bishop just said, right? Only Big Bombo Matters tomorrow was me writing my trauma of what had happened to a loved member who had been bullied online. I actually wrote my trauma out. So you must, I can see you crying, you must let it go with accepting that some people will never tell you what they've done. I'm going to get up and hug you. I'm so sorry.
I don't think I can say much more than that, but I've got a poem in my book, in this book, called All the Psychologists Say, and it's about guilt. So have a look at that poem and read that poem and imbibe that poem, but it's about facing that guilt. And it's okay to have that guilt, and it's not going to go away. You must just, it's a level of acceptance that you need to reach.
What I will say is that once you reach that level of acceptance, because I've also had experiences with complicated emotions and guilt and doing the work but feeling like it's a burden and wondering why am I still here doing this work. And once you reach a place of acceptance, for me at least, that desire sort of goes away and your life becomes full with other things. And so there's always that to look forward to. Oh, we are at 3 o'clock. Do we have? No? Okay. So, so we're going to wrap this up now on this note. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for listening. And thank you for yet again another successful Open Book Festival.
And I just want to do a shout out to Open Book because it's been such a fantastic literary festival. Started on Friday, it's finished today, and all the panels have been incredible. Frankie and Mervyn have really outdone themselves, so
Yes.
shout out to them. Thank you.